Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 106 of the Sim Racing Show. And this week, Gran Turismo 7 might have just fired the first real warning shot at Le Mans Ultimate, because Polyphony suddenly drops the exact modern hypercars people have been begging for, including myself, and changed the entire endurance racing conversation overnight, potentially. But sim racers are worried. Does this suddenly make Gran Turismo 7 a real problem for Le Mans Ultimate? We'll get into that in just a second. And speaking of Le Mans Ultimate, they might have already fired back, because motorsport games are now hinting at something much bigger long term, potentially even IMSA style expansion plans. We've also got news from the Sim Racing Expo in Charlotte in the USA, including early VR gameplay for Project Motor Racing and our iRacing Arcade pushing into split screen multiplayer. It says Corsa Evo has revealed the first car for version 0.7 and once again split the community right down the middle. Rennsport's first major 2026 update has finally landed, and F125's controversial 2026 expansion now has a release date. This is a proper episode of the Sim Racing Show. As you can see, we've got some meaty things to talk about. So Polyphony revealed the June update for GT7, and loads of sim racers I think probably would have thought the trailer was fake at first, because it kind of looks like the dream update that I've been talking about on this show for probably 105 episodes. Nobody expected Polyphony to drop the exact modern endurance cars we have been begging for. But there's a wider question here, because once we realise this is real, the bigger point is that has Gran Turismo 7 actually just put pressure on Le Mans Ultimate? So what's happening here? On Thursday, June 11th, Gran Turismo 7 is getting 5 new cars, and 4 of them are modern prototype monsters. We're talking actual, genuine, current era endurance machinery, the kind of cars that will finally make driving at Le Mans in the game feel believable. So the 4 headline cars are some of my most favourite cars in the world that I've gone around the world to see: the Porsche 963, the BMW M Hybrid V8, Ferrari 499P, and the Peugeot 9XA. And then the 5th car is a really cool bonus as well. It's the Porsche 911 safety car, which is based on the 992 Turbo S with the lights and the full safety car treatment. We normally used to get this in Gran Turismo, but now we don't seem to get them much anymore. So this is like an extra kind of bit of fan service point on top. But the bigger point is what this does to GT7, because let's be honest, the GR10 Hybrid from Toyota has been holding, now the older version, has been holding down the modern Le Mans vibe on its own for ages, but now we can build a current era grid with actual variety. So we have different brands there, not just running 499P liveries on the GR10, different sounds, different shapes, different driving personalities. And that matters, because until now, Le Mans Ultimate had a very obvious advantage of Gran Turismo 7. If you wanted the modern endurance experience, the hypercars, the WEC atmosphere, that multi-class vibe, LMU was the obvious, undisputed place to go. But GT7 is a much bigger racing game than Le Mans Ultimate. It has the audience, the polish, the accessibility, the controller players, the PSVR2 crowd, and now suddenly is adding those modern endurance racing cars that have been kind of enviously looked at by the core audience. So obviously Gran Turismo 7 is not becoming Le Mans Ultimate overnight, but could it steal attention? Could it pull casual endurance fans away? Could there be players who've looked at Le Mans Ultimate and kind of been thinking, I'm going to wait for that to come to console, but now they're going to jump back onto Gran Turismo 7 instead? So let me know what you think about that. And if you're worried, by the way, that this could be like some Ultimate killer, well, they've already answered it. They've released their big new plans, and we'll speak about it just later in this show. But onto the hardware side for a little bit, which has had its own big weekend in the US, because in the Sim Racing Expo Charlotte, there were brands like Fanatec, THRUSTMASTER, Hussenfeld, and SimMagic. And on the software side, you had iRacing Studios and Project Motor Racing. From the pictures, it didn't look like the biggest expo in the world. And I do remember a few years ago, even in Germany, the Sim Racing Expo was not that big. Over the last few years, it's exploded. But I think it's a reminder that sim racing, we're still quite a small niche community. Like, we're not a global, the man on the street doesn't really know what sim racing is. And I just wonder if the Sim Racing Expo in the USA kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe they could have done a bit of better job when it came to marketing and publicity and letting people know in the local area that there's a massive expo going on. But in any event, there were big brands there, and there were reveals and demos that had people looking and queuing for around the weekend. So the first one worth mentioning is that iRacing Arcade did have a work in progress local split screen build on the floor up to 4 players on one screen, and you could even throw AI into the mix to fill out the grid. Hello, Gran Turismo 7, which is exactly what the game needs if it wants to be the fun racing game you can actually play with people in the same room. The goal they were talking about was getting that mode into the PC version this summer and then lining it up with the console release when that drops as well. Let's see what happens. VPG Sim, one of my favorite companies in sim racing. If you haven't seen the video where I visited their factory and saw how they actually make wheels from nothing to end up with a full wheel, you have to see it. I think it's the best. I would say it, but I think it's the best video you'll ever see on how a sim racing sim was made. They've come out with a new wheel called Mission Sim, actually a little bit out of conversations we had when I visited the factory, and it's a no compromise style product. So it's formula shape, 290mm wide, aluminium and carbon construction, a proper screen up front, and a ridiculous number of inputs. And Project Motor Racing, this is the one that's quite curious. VR. They had an early VR build running at the expo, and it seemed to be actually running. It wasn't finished yet. It looks like there were some rough bits around the edges, but the cockpit detail and smoothness apparently looked better than people expect. I have serious amount of what you would call it, salt, or just like not drinking Kool-Aid on this, considering Project Motor Racing's history. But moving into VR is an important step. Remember when I interviewed Rensport, I asked them about VR and they said that was going to be quite difficult. But for Project Motor Racing, if they can get there first, maybe a little bit of like a, win to the punch over Rensport. And also for Project Motor Racing, former Kunos physics legend Aris is now working with Straight 4 Studios as Chief Creative Officer. And actually, I think that name matters. This is the guy who, at the very least, we can say, is heavily associated with the handling feel behind legendary games like Netcar Pro and AC. So for a sim like Project Motor Racing, where one of the biggest complaints has been the huge difference in handling from car to car, this does feel like a serious step in the right direction. And Project Motor Racing didn't stop there, because that's Project Motor Racing. They've also announced the next DLC, the GT Icons Pack, bringing 9 cars and 1 track focused around classic sports cars from the 60s and 70s, including stuff like the 67 Chaparral 2F and the 64 Shelby Daytona Coupe. But in classic Project Motor Racing fashion, there's already little eyebrows right here, because the new track, Rocky Knoll Raceway, looks a lot like unlicensed Road America. And after what happened with the Japanese GT500 Super GT pack, you have to start wondering, are they just playing with fire again? Is it going to put people off paying money to buy this, given what happened with the GT500 pack going off sale? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Is Project Motor Racing like doing the right stuff to earn your confidence back? Now let's return to Le Mans Ultimate, because it might be hinting at the biggest kind of expansion you can do, and it could be really interesting. Now in Motorsport Games' latest earnings call, because I have to read all this stuff, Stephen Hood basically hinted they're looking at adding more international content, and the key detail is this: stuff with no European link, which is a pretty big shift compared to what we've been getting so far. And when you hear international endurance content, there are 2 obvious directions this could go: Asian Le Mans Series or IMSA. Both are close enough philosophy that and car categories that it makes sense, and either one would instantly widen the appeal of Le Mans Ultimate beyond the WC bubble. But let's be real, IMSA would be the big one. Not just because people love the series, but because the tracklist potential over there is ridiculous. If Le Mans Ultimate starts tapping into that pool properly, that's the kind of content that extends the lifespan of the game by years, not weeks or months. Obviously, it's still early. A hint of a call isn't a release announcement, but I have detected hints before about Daytona. So a little exclusive here. I really wouldn't be surprised if Daytona does come to Le Mans Ultimate. Now next we'll speak about Aesthetical's Evo 0.5 update, but before that I want to say a big thank you to today's sponsor, GT Omega, who again have sponsored this week's sim racing show. And as you can see behind me, I have the GT Omega inertia bucket seat. I've been raving about bucket seats for a while now. I find it difficult to go back to non-bucket seats, but if you're looking for a rig or a seat, go check out gtomega.co.uk. The rig behind me there is the Prime Light, and it is holding my SimuQ2 Pro and 2 active pedals, even though it's probably not meant to. So go to gtomega.co.uk and use my code Kireth5 for an extra 5% discount. Big thanks to GT Omega. Now to that Aesthetical's Evo news, because this one has split, I would say, sim race in 2 camps again. One side is happy that Kunos having a cool car, but the other side is getting increasingly impatient, and maybe legitimately so, on the things that they think are really important for the sim. Stuff like virtual reality being solid, the free roam dream. Where is it? After career mode was killed, and just generally Evo starting to feel like a complete package instead of a random collection of things in the early access project that you kind of maybe revisit every update to see if it's finally ready. Now the car news is pretty spicy. This is a modern Porsche 935, very interesting car. By the way, Porsche are everywhere in sim racing right now. Like, they are absolutely doing big pushes into sim racing. Every event I go to seems to have Porsche there. I speak with Porsche regularly. Like, they are really invested in sim racing. They have a new program where they want to take sim races to their real world cars. I've interviewed the head of Porsche Motorsport on this as well. So like, Porsche are really in sim racing, which is very interesting. And this car 935 is a 2018 tribute car that's based on a 911 GT2 RS under the skin, but then they stretched it with like aero heavy bodywork to like give it an endurance, heritage, legacy feel. Track only, limited run, and obviously looks outrageous, but it's a very fast car, and it's kind of like one of those fan favorite cars because it's just so like weird in a way. And if it feels similar, that's probably because it appeared already in ACC as part of the GT Pack DLC, so Kunos already knows this car. No release date yet for 0.7, but more teasers expected next few weeks, and always I should be getting an early release version, so the very moment that's out, I should have a video letting you know what I think of the cars and tracks, etc. Now let's move over to Rennsport, because after a lot of delays and a lot of waiting, to say the least, its first big update of 2026 has finally landed, and it does arrive alongside the Endurance Classics Part 1 DLC. Now, to be fair, the DLC content list is pretty strong. You've got the Porsche 911 GT1, Mercedes-Benz CLK LM, Porsche 956, and the Peugeot 9XA Evo. By the way, I assume that the car coming to Gran Turismo 7 is going to be the Evo, the one with the wing, but we need to double check. But also coming to Rennsport is Le Mans as well, the circuit. So Le Mans is finally in Rennsport, and for a sim that's been dying really to get people's affection, sounds like Homelander, it's the exact kind of content that it does need. But are people going to love Rennsport? There is more updates in the DLC as well in terms of free stuff. They're adding Kuala Lumpur street circuit, extra layouts for Monza, Road Atlanta, Nürburgring, Fuji, Daytona, plus a Hyundai N-Vision 74 concept car for everyone, which I've already driven at an event in Rennsport in Germany. It's a very unusual car, electric car, very fast, brakes not fantastic, so very unusual to drive. So on paper, this is a big update, and it's Rennsport saying, hey, come and try us again. But the question is it actually good enough? Is this content, is this what people need for Rennsport? Like, in a dream world with no limitations, what does Rennsport need to do to entice people back? Because I've just shown you that Gran Turismo 7's doing a big old update for free. Evo's launching a fan favourite car, and all that stuff is coming for free as well. Le Mans Ultimate is kind of the king in this space on PC at least, and they're talking about big expansion. So is Rennsport offering anything different? You let me know. Right, F125's controversial 2026 expansion now has a release date June the 3rd, and the reason why it's controversial is because it's not a full standalone F126 game like we've seen for the last billion years. This year it's a DLC route, so the idea is, on paper, quite simple: update F125 with the 2026 cars and the new rule set, and give the developers more time to build a proper new full game for 2027. Now, a lot of fans were not really happy about this when it's first announced because, let's be honest, no one likes the idea of paying a lot of money for what seems like a season update, but at least in their credit, the pricing is not insane. So £24 on consoles, $24.99 on consoles, $21.99 on PC. Does that feel like a fair price for a proper 2026 expansion? You'll have to let me know. Right, so much more sim racing news to come. I have an interview with the CEO of Ace Tech Racing, Andre Eriksson, from Sim Expo Charlotte, coming out on the channel. No holds barred as usual, no punches pulled. It's a proper classic Kireth interview, dare I say. So let me know in the comments to look forward to that, and that'll come out soon, and I'll see you in the next sim racing show.